Welcome to the Common Core Mathematics Transition Series. This series will support teachers with the transition to Common Core State Standards in the math classroom. If you have additional questions, please contact the Lancaster-Lebanon IU13. This episode of the CCMTS will highlight how to read the Common Core State Standards in mathematics for grades K through 8. It is recommended that you have access to the actual Common Core State Standard document for mathematics, either online or in hard copy format. The first page of each grade level identifies the critical areas that should be the focus of instructional time. These critical areas are similar to NCTM's curriculum focal points. The second page of each grade level presents an overview. This overview includes the domain and cluster headings. Notice on the right side of each page is the mathematical practices. If you turn to page 5 in your standards document, you will see the same diagram. There are three keywords when looking at how Common Core standards are organized: domain, cluster, and standard. Let's look at each of these individually. When viewing the standards, you will notice a heading that is shaded. This is called the domain. Domains are large groups of related standards. The domain identifies an overarching big idea that connects topics across the grade levels. The domain serves as a description of the mathematical content that is to be learned from the standards that follow. This shaded heading also includes the code number for the domain and standards. The domain in this example is Number and Operations in Base 10. The coding for this domain is 3.nbt. That means this is for grade 3 standards, Number and Operations in Base 10. You are looking at a sample of the standards from first grade. What is the domain? The domain is Operations and Algebraic Thinking. How do we know that this is a first grade domain? Because of the number 1 on the right side in front of the coding. Below the shaded domain heading is a statement in bold. This is called the cluster heading. Following the cluster heading will be one or more standards. A group of standards make up a cluster. Clusters are groups of related standards and state what students should know and be able to do at each grade level. The clusters reflect both mathematical understandings and skills. You may find that standards from different clusters are closely related. That is because mathematics is a connected subject. Standards are the content statements and progress in complexity from grade to grade. Standards are part of a cluster. What are the two cluster headings for this first grade domain of Operations and Algebraic Thinking? The cluster headings are Represent and Solve Problems Involving Addition and Subtraction, and Understand and Apply Properties of Operations and the Relationship between Addition and Subtraction. How many standards are in the first cluster? There would be 2. Please turn to page 29 in your Common Core State Standard document. Referring to page 29, how many domain headings are on this page? What are those domain headings? How many clusters are in the first domain? How many standards are in the cluster? Use the 4 operations with whole numbers to solve problems. There are 2 domain headings on page 29. They are Operations and Algebraic Thinking and Number and Operations in Base 10. There are 3 clusters in the first domain, and there are 3 standards in the first cluster. Refer now to the entire Common Core State Standard document to answer the following questions. In how many and what grades does the domain Counting and Cardinality appear? In how many and what grades does the domain Operations and Algebraic Thinking appear? and how many standards appear in the fourth grade domain, number and operations, fractions. You should have noticed that the domain of counting and cardinality only appears in one grade, kindergarten. The domain operations and algebraic thinking appears in grades K through 5. There are 7 standards in the domain number and operations fractions for 4th grade. Notice they do continue to the next page. Thank you for watching this episode of Reading the Common Core Standards for grades K through 8. If you have additional questions, please do not hesitate to contact Lancaster Lebanon IU 13.